You believe that essentially conservatives don't believe that gay marriage should be allowed. Is there anyone in here who would potentially oppose two people kissing in public that are of the same sex? You could raise your hand if you want. No, no law against it. Just your own opinion. Okay.
If you watch the Jubilee debates, specifically when they have 20 conservatives up against one more liberally or left-leaning person, you might be surprised by the appearance of these people, given the fact that most conservatives are considered to look, well, more conventional by nature. And one thing I want to say is that having been in California for almost a year, it is fascinating because there is a great deal of conservatism in Los Angeles, but they don't really seem to understand what it's actually like to live in a red state. The main reason why I moved to Los Angeles was because of the film industry. I was looking for more opportunities. The second biggest reason why I moved to Los Angeles was because of labor laws. The main thing about Houston is that I often hear people in Los Angeles telling me that it must be so much cheaper there. It is cheaper there, but they don't understand that you are paying for a lot of things on the back end due to a lack of regulations and in general a lack of labor rights. For example, people will complain about zoning and permits in Los Angeles, which is perfectly understandable. It's a lot of red tape. However, I will say that when you don't have zoning and when you don't have permits in a city like Houston, you do see some negative effects. There is overall a wider range of outcomes, which means that you can have some great positives, but you can also have some really bad negatives. Houston is notorious for not having any zoning laws, and what you've seen is that you'll see people developing on places that you never would have developed on in the past. For instance, it rains a lot in Houston. It floods almost twice a year. And what you'll see is that they've been building houses in Memorial and in parts of Katy that are natural wetlands. And for that reason, those houses flood a lot. Another similar issue to this is with commercial real estate. There's a lot of abandoned shopping centers in Houston because the land gets developed very quickly. It's in a great real estate location. However, that appeal doesn't last. After 30 years or so, people no longer want to rent those units, and so a lot of them become abandoned. And what you'll find is that these take up a lot of space, and they have a lot of concrete too for parking lots. Because of this increases urban sprawl. This increases infrastructure costs because you have to run pipes underneath that and wiring too. And the more you expand a city's area, the more you develop, well, the more pipes and wiring that you have to lay down. And the mayor has spoken out about this, saying that infrastructure has expanded so much in Houston that it is effectively bankrupting the city. There's other issues with overdevelopment of concrete too, such as heat sinks and increased flooding risks. But overall, general urban sprawl is expensive and it's making things more difficult for everyone. It creates a problem similar to Detroit, where when you have such a car-centric city and commutes become more unsustainable, it basically just reduces business. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because a great deal of conservative Californians, especially those in Los Angeles and the OC, don't seem to understand what it's like to live in a state that is completely led by Republicans. In that it's pretty nice for those who are wealthy, but if you're poor or if you're disadvantaged in any way, then you can be completely turned upside down. And what you'll see is that, yes, our real estate might be cheaper, but there are less regulations in place to make sure that the house you're buying isn't secretly covered up with mold, something that is a big concern in a city that is so humid that floods so often. There's other things too. For instance, there is zero indication that Texas will raise the minimum wage from $7.25 an hour, yet prices keep increasing to the point of where they're getting closer and closer to California prices. In general, I would say that utilities are less reliable than they used to be, and also a great deal of conservative Californians, at least on these Jubilee videos, are members of the LGBTQIA community, but again, they seem to be completely unaware of what it's like to be a member of the queer or gay community in a red state. Texas just passed a law trying to ban drag performances, and luckily that was struck down as being unconstitutional. But that's the reality that you're living in, where they perceive your identity as being little more than an ideology, and they are trying to strike it down, and they are trying to eliminate your ability to exist in red states. And people in California who wax poetic on all these conservative talking points don't seem to be aware of that. There's a lot more I could bring up, like reproductive rights, for instance, but the point I'm trying to make is that if these gay and queer conservatives are fully aware of their situation and the politicians that they support, then they are probably just doing this for the money. If they aren't fully aware of the situation, if they genuinely believe in conservatives, then I don't think they're aware of what these conservatives are saying about them behind their back or simply in public. Statements such as transgenderism, the idea that being trans is an ideology or a belief system as opposed to a genuine identity or a medical condition. The idea that this is an ideology that will be eradicated over time is a statement that has been made publicly by conservatives multiple times, even this year. I've also seen people believe still that homosexuality is a belief system, something that can be changed, not something that is inherent to the human experience. And yet, these gay and queer conservatives continue to wax poetic and support conservative beliefs and politicians, respectively, without really being aware of what they're saying about them, about basically the idea that they should not exist.